Hello, Internet. It is I, Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Recaps. November happened, and overall, not gonna lie, it was pretty boring, especially in comparison to October. Like, October was booming. I mean, we had Venom 2, No Time to Die, Halloween Kills, Dune, all open over 40 million apiece, back to back to back to back. It was exciting. This November, though, not really the case. Only two movies made any real money, and the rest either did okay or terrible. So, yeah, it was pretty unremarkable. But let's get started. So, first weekend of November was the 5th. We had two movies come out. We're going to start with the big one, the one that I accurately predicted would be the big movie of November. I think everyone predicted that. And that's the Eternals. Okay, Eternals. Ooh. All right. So Eternals. For my prediction, I said it would open between 70 to 75 million dollars. I knew it wasn't going to be one of the big Marvel movies, or at least one of their bigger movies. So I thought it would open around the same level as Shang-Chi. And guess what? It opened with $71 million. So I was right on the money. However, when it comes to my total prediction, I said it would open with, that's not open, I said it would end with like 200 million. Well, that's not going to happen. I'm a bit off from that because as of the making of this video, it's the 5th of December. It has made $156 million domestically, 384 million worldwide. That's not great. It's rather front loaded, which I believe is due to bad word of mouth because this movie is widely considered to be the worst MCU movie of all time. And do I believe that's the case? I mean, after watching it, I kind of agree. Although there are some other Marvel movies I'd kind of put on the same level as Eternals, like Iron Man 2 and Thor 2. I'd put those on the same level as this. But yeah, I think negative word of mouth played a role in it being front loaded. But if we look at the MCU, even the most recent ones, Black Widow and Shang-Chi, it doesn't look too good. Because 156 million, I mean, look at Shang-Chi, that made 224 million domestic. Black Widow made 183 million domestic. And that had to deal with the Disney Plus Premier Access experiment. This Eternals was theatrical only, so it looks a whole lot worse. But at the very least, it has outgrossed Black Widow overseas, so it's not the worst performing MCU movie worldwide. Although probably, if you include inflation, it is. And when it comes to domestic, it's the second worst, only ahead of Incredible Hulk, the redheaded stepchild of the MCU. And even with inflation, I'm pretty sure Incredible Hulk beats it. So yeah, this isn't great, obviously. But if to anyone who thinks, oh, the MCU's dead, it's going away, it's gonna die, to that I say, no. I mean, this month we got Spider-Man No Way Home, which is bound to be the big movie of not just the month, but the whole year. Hell, of the past 2 years. It's bound to be a monster at the box office. So the MCU will get back on track financially very, very quickly. Mark my words. Uh, but yeah, this is definitely uh, a stain on their resume. Definitely, I would say like a pothole in the grand scheme of things. But it's a minor speed. It's a minor speed bump. That's how I'll say. It's a minor speed bump. But I mean, it's still one of the bigger movies of the year. I mean, no one can deny that. So it's got that going for it. But yeah, overall, it was underwhelming. And when it comes to my predictions, I was right in one area and wrong in another, which I feel is going to be a theme for this video. So yeah, that was the Eternals. Next up, we got Spencer, an awards, well, I would say an Oscar bait movie. Uh, my prediction, I predicted it would open like $2 million, and what do you know? It made 2.1 million opening weekend. I was like, fantastic. But like Eternals, I was off with my total prediction. See, here's the thing. This movie only opened in like less than 1,000 theaters, so I didn't know how far it would expand. So I decided to be optimistic and say, oh, it'll expand to like, I don't know. Well, I didn't say any theaters, but I thought it would at least make 10 million total. Well, that didn't happen. It's only made 6.7 million. So that's underwhelming. See, this is why I hate covering limited releases going wide, because or situations like this where they're not super limited. Like usually when you think of a limited release, you're thinking of a movie that opens in like four, like single digit theaters. Okay, this opened in like less than 1,000, so it's very hard to predict where it's gonna end up. So it's very frustrating whenever I have to deal with movies like this. And this isn't the only movie I had to deal with that had this strategy. So yeah, I mean, I'm not that surprised. I mean, I didn't see too much marketing for this. I know I had a lot of awards hype, but awards hype can only get you so far sometimes. So yeah, will Kristen Stewart still get that Oscar? Well, she might get a nomination, but I don't know about winning. We'll see about that. But yeah, overall, again, right in one area, wrong in another. All right, that was the first weekend of November. Now, time for the second weekend. Well, technically not, because Clifford the Big Red Dog came out midweek on a Wednesday, but it was a super wide release, so I got to cover it. So, Clifford the Big Red Dog, a movie that I don't think anyone was looking forward to that much. And it honestly, when it comes to the thumbnails I made for these movies, this is probably one of my better thumbnails, as I typed "Not My Clifford" in as a reference to "Not My Roderick" from the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie that never happened. So yeah, there's that. But when it comes to my predictions, okay, this one was weird because it opened midweek and not even on a holiday. Well, it did, but not like a major holiday like a Thanksgiving or a Christmas or Valentine's Day or Memorial Day or 4th of July, any of or Easter or any of those big holidays. MLK Junior Day too. That counts. But yeah, this opened on a Wednesday on a school night. So I had to make weird predictions. I predicted it would make 1.5 million on Wednesday because school night. But the next day was Veterans Day, the 11th of November. And Veterans Day can be a real boon for family movies. They can really spike up in business to a rather insane degree. So I thought it would make like 4 to 5 million on Thursday, right? And then Friday would be even, and then the rest of the weekend would go as normal. So I thought it would make 20-ish million for the 5 day weekend, and it did do better than that, but it had a weird journey to it. So the movie opened with on Wednesday with 2.3 million. I was like, oh great, it's gonna overperform, and then to my surprise, it barely jumped on Veterans Day, which is very strange because I think, yeah, look at everything else. Eternals, Dune, No Time to Die, Venom Let to Be Carnage. All these movies had bigger jumps on Veterans Day than Clifford, despite the fact that Clifford was a family movie. So I thought that was very strange. And then, Friday it got a bit of a boost, but not that much of a boost. But then Saturday it really came alive. And as a result, it made 22 million for the 5-day weekend and 16 for the 3-day weekend. So I was satisfied. I was right with my prediction. Now, when it comes to my total prediction, I said 50 million. Will it get there? It'll probably fall a tad short. Actually, it might get there. It's gonna have to crawl in order to get there because it's been weirdly front loaded so far. It felt like 51% the second weekend, probably because of Ghostbusters Afterlife, I'm guessing, because that movie had a bit of a family audience to it. Then it held on okay for Thanksgiving, which is surprising because it was going up head to head with Encanto, but it held its own. But then post Thanksgiving, it just plummeted. It just fell off. So now it's like close to $46 million. I think it can get to 50. If it can get to 50, then it'll be okay. It'll be like one of the bigger family movies of the year. And really this movie needs to make as much money as it can because yes, I know they already greenlit a sequel. I made a whole canceled episode on that. But this movie apparently costs like upwards to $60 million. But so this domestic total isn't the greatest, but its overseas run hasn't started yet, so that might help the movie. But again, but I don't know. Overseas could completely tank. Who knows? Who knows what will happen? I mean, the sequel's already greenlit, so not much I can do. Not much any of us can do. And I didn't mention this yet, but it had the same release strategy as Paw Patrol, where it was released in theaters and on Paramount Plus at the same time. And the fact that it was able to make this money at all, considering the day and date strategy, I think is somewhat remarkable. In fact, it's performed better. It did better than Paw Patrol, at least domestically. So, yeah, would I call this a win? Sort of, not really. It's middle ground. It's middling. That's how I would describe it. It's middling. So, yeah, that was Clifford the Big Red, a dog. Next up, we got Belfast. Now, with this movie, I decided to cover its opening weekend, even though it wasn't technically a wide release. I did this because I didn't want to cover a whole bunch of movies on Thanksgiving. I already had to cover three. I didn't want to cover any more because this movie was going to expand on Thanksgiving. So I decided to just make life easier for myself by just covering it the weekend it came out. And so because of that, because of its somewhat limited start, I predicted it would open with $1 million. And opened with 1.7 million. I was like, great. Great. I'm doing great with my predictions so far, at least with opening weekend. I'm doing fantastic. And again, like Spencer, I overestimated how much it would make total because I thought it would make like over $10 million. And at this moment in time, it has made less than six. And I'm just like, damn it, come on. Again, I hate covering movies that open somewhat limited, and then expand later, because you never know if it's gonna go right. You never know if it's gonna have a big old, you know, I guess explosion at the box office. I mean, there's been plenty of times where movies have opened in limited release and did extremely well when they opened wide. I mean, there's so many examples. I think the last one that really did it was 1917. There was that. Uncut Gems did well. Uh, let's see. Well, I guess. I mean, there's also Parasite, Jojo Rabbit. Trying to think of others off the top of my head. Darn it. I can't think of any. It's been a long time. It's been a long time since we had a really big, limited turned wide release. It's been ages. Mainly because the art house market just there it's not as prominent as it once was. Although that has changed with Licorice Pizza, which I will talk about later. I'll give a mention to it. But yeah, I mean, this movie just screamed Oscar bait. It just everything about it screamed Oscar bait, and I just because of the whole black and white aesthetic, I didn't think it would have a wide audience. And guess what? It didn't have a wide audience. So yeah, I'm not too surprised by this result, but still, again, I completely screwed up my total prediction, and it's the most frustrating thing in the world. So yeah. So that was the second weekend of November, which was very lackluster. Now the third weekend, the 19th, we had two movies. Ghostbusters Afterlife and King Richard. First, Ghostbusters. Okay. Now for Ghostbusters. Uh this movie had a bit going against it. Okay. It had to deal with, I guess, the stigma of the 2016 movie. As you know, the 2016 Ghostbusters movie, the all female one, uh, wasn't great. It bombed financially, and it's probably one of the most hated movies in internet history. Like, definitely, it is, and it's just left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, and I was worried that that bad taste would bleed over into this movie because sure, this is not connected to the 2016 movie at all. It's a true sequel. It's the true Ghostbusters 3, but still, it's the same brand name. So I thought, this movie was going to have to pay for the last one's sins. Kind of like what happened with the Suicide Squad, how they had to pay for the 2016 movie's sins, and as a result, that movie tanked. Well, here, it avoided the Suicide Squad's fate somehow. Because my prediction, opening weekend, I thought it would open with 30 to 35 million dollars. But to my surprise, my positive surprise, it opened with 44 million dollars. Not that far off from the 2016 movie, which I'll just pull up here for comparison's sake. Boom. 2016 movie right here opened with 46 million dollars. So being off by only 2 million, I think that's really good, especially considering Ghostbusters Afterlife is in such a chaotic marketplace. And yeah, so I was surprised. I was like, yes, finally. I haven't had, like, the last real surprise I had, at least positive wise, was Dune last in October. So I was feeling pretty positive about this. But so far, it's about the same as the 2016 movie. I mean, you look at see, okay, the weekend. So its second weekend was Thanksgiving. I thought it would have a good Thanksgiving. Did it though? Not really. I was expecting better. And then its third weekend, it kind of tanked a little bit, but that's to be expected for post Thanksgiving. But it's off by like $4 million from the 2016 movie. Now, 2016 movie ultimately ended with $128 million domestically. Ghostbusters Afterlife right now is at 102. Will it reach the 2016 movie? Probably. I think it'll just edge it out, just barely. I think it'll make more, but not by a whole lot. But what's actually good about that is that Afterlife cost half as much as the 2016 movie. As you see here, Ghostbusters 2016 budget $144 million. Afterlife 75 million. So it'll be a lot easier to make a profit with a budget like that. And overseas, I don't know if it's doing better or worse. I can't really tell, but it'll probably be about the same as the 2016 movie. So yeah, overall, Ghostbusters Afterlife, I would consider it an undisputed success considering everything it had to deal with. If you ask me, like the real winner of November, I mean, sure, Eternals made more money, but that had somewhat higher expectations because of the MCU branding. Ghostbusters Afterlife didn't have great expectations at all, and it managed to exceed those. So, reality, I think Ghostbusters Afterlife's the real winner here in the grand scheme of things. So, yeah, Ghostbusters Afterlife, congratulations. You didn't tank, you made money, so good job. And if you were curious, I actually saw the movie. I thought it was pretty decent. I thought it was a whole lot better than the 2016 movie. Unlike that movie, with this movie, I felt joy. With the 2016 movie, I just wanted to go home. So yeah, yeah. Ghostbusters Afterlife, you're a winner in my book. Now, the other movie that came out that weekend, King Richard, the second to last movie of the HBO Max experiment, and at this point, I'm pretty sure Warner Brothers are just so happy that it's almost over because again, we got another bomb on our hands. How many bombs do we have now? I don't even know. God. Ugh, I'll try to do the math on that later. So King Richard, I predicted it would open with $5 to $10 million because that was the range I used for a number of HBO Max movies. I had the same range for Malignant, for Cry Macho, for Many Saints of Newark, and so I thought the same would apply to King Richard, and I was right. It opened with 5.4 million. But where I failed was that again, my total predictions were so off. I thought it would have really long legs and make like 30 to 40 million domestic. So far, it's only made 13. 13 domestic total. Like, Jesus, that is terrible. And on a budget of 50 million, that's just a bomb. That's a hard bomb. Now, I don't know. I'm gonna look at Warner Brothers track record here. 2021. Here we go. Okay. Well, I actually have to go all the way here. Okay, Warner Brothers. All right. So here are all the Warner Brothers movies from this year. Well, I guess Wonder Woman, that was a 2021 carryover. Doesn't count. Okay. So where King Richard is, it has made more money than Malignant, Cry Macho, Maces in Newark, Those Who Wish Me Dead, Judas and the Black Messiah, and at the very bottom of the barrel, Reminiscence. So it's got that going for it. However, it has done well. It'll soon surpass the Little Things, I imagine. But at that point, it'll. There's no way in hell it's gonna match In the Heights, which was a bomb from the to begin with. Then Mortal Kombat, Tom and Jerry, Suicide Squad, Conjuring 3 is God, it's just a graveyard of movies. Only two, well actually two have made 100 million domestic, and those movies being Dune and Godzilla vs. Kong. Dune is the biggest movie of the year for Warner Brothers. Who in their right mind thought that was possible? Not me, but it happened, and it made over 100 million domestic. So I am grinning ear to ear when I see that number. But yeah, besides that, this is awful. And King Richard is just another. another L in the HBO Max experiment, which will thankfully end with Matrix Resurrections later this month. That'll be it for this whole experiment. So let's hope this whole experiment ends on a high rather than a low. And I think it might end on a high, but I'll talk about Matrix when it comes out in like 2.5 weeks time. But yeah, trying to wait for this to load again. But yeah, King Richard, it's a dud, a disaster. I'm not that. Well, I really shouldn't be surprised at all. I think this is Will Smith's worst performing movie ever. I think. I'm pretty sure. So that's not great for him. So yeah, it bombed. Not much else to say. So that was King Richard. Now, finally, the last weekend of November, Thanksgiving weekend. Yeah, historically one of the more lucrative times of the year. A lot of big movies come out during this time, or at least the weekend before. Like this is where movies tend to make a lot of money. This year, not the case really, because the three movies that came out didn't set the world on fire at all. In fact, the real winner here was Licorice Pizza, if you ask me. But we'll get to that after we cover these three movies. So first, Encanto. Uh Encanto. Okay. So with Encanto, I predicted it would open with 50 million for the 5-day week. No, 45 to 50 for the 5-day weekend. That's what I predicted. I thought this movie would, maybe bring back some of that family market that's been missing for a long, long, long time. A market that hasn't seen a movie in mass since Sonic, right? So, yeah, yeah, I thought it would do okay, but it's not doing that great really because it's 5-day weekend and end up making $40 million. So, yeet. That's not great at all. I mean, that 5-day weekend is less than the 3-day weekends for Tangled, Frozen, uh, Moana, Coco, Ralph Breaks the Internet. So yeah, that's not great at all. Hell, that's actually its 3-day weekend was less than Frozen 2's third weekend, which was post Thanksgiving. So that's not that doesn't look great at all. I mean, actually, in comparison to other, it actually didn't even do that great in comparison to The Good Dinosaur, and that movie was a disaster financially. So that doesn't look good either. But it's not the worst performing animated movie for Thanksgiving. I mean, there are some that have done worse. See, trying to find it. Rise of the Guardians, for instance, that was an infamous bomb. I know it's a movie that's loved by a lot of people, has a strong fan base. I get that, but facts are facts. It did terrible financially. And then Penguins of Madagascar. If we look at the numbers, uh, right here, yeah, it didn't do that much better than those two. So it's not great at all. You do not want to be in the same company as Rise of the Guardians or Penguins in Madagascar. You really don't. But it's on a faster pace than both of them. So yeah, I guess. And with its total, I didn't say it initially, but I thought it would make at least over 100 million domestic at least. Will it get there? That's mighty doubtful. It's gonna have to deal with some strong competition. I mean, not next weekend, But the weekend after that with Spider-Man and especially with Sing 2, oh boy, it's gonna be rough. But it does have a chance of reaching 100 million. If it can get there, it will be, well, I think Sing 2 will probably get there faster, but it will be one of the, it'll be likely the second family movie to reach 100 million. At least the second PG rated movie to reach 100 million after Sing 2, because I think Sing 2 will do a whole lot better than this. It'll get there much faster. But it'll be one of two animated movies to reach 100 million. Something that hasn't happened since, God. Uh trying to think. Frozen 2. Like, so yeah, yeah. I mean this I mean I wasn't expecting greatness, but I'm still underwhelmed by this. But, hope, I guess its best hope at this point is that it'll find a bigger audience on Disney Plus when it drops on, I think it's the 24th. Hold on, let me look it up. I'm using my laptop for this, off camera. I believe it's the 24th. Uh yeah, the 24th, Christmas Eve. So, it might do better there, but yeah, it's pretty underwhelming. But if there's any silver lining, is that when it comes to PG rated movies this year, um it's currently number 2 behind Space Jam 2, and it will soon surpass that. So for a little while it'll be the biggest movie of the year for PG movies. So congratulations, I guess. Not really though. Okay, so that was Encanto. Next up, we got House of Gucci. Now, I predicted it would make, I think it was 25 million, 25 to 30 million for the 5-day weekend. It didn't quite hit that, but it came relatively close with 22 million, and it had a decent haul for Thanksgiving. So at this point in time, it's made $33 million. But I think this movie did the best out of all the Thanksgiving movies, mainly because when it comes to dramas, there has just been, there's just nothing, and there's nothing out there. It has just been a wasteland. I mean, before this came out, the biggest drama of the year was Respect, and that only made 24 million domestic. So that's a big old yikes. But House of Gucci nearly matched that in its first 5 days. It's already sprinted past that. So it's, I mean, I don't know what movie will beat it. I mean, there's several movies that are coming out that I know. Journal for Jordan has a chance. I don't know how much of a chance, but it has a chance. But yeah, House of Gucci right now, I say, is a relative victory, and additionally, it made more money in its first 3 days than The Last Duel made total. And both movies were directed by Ridley Scott, so he was able to bounce back very quickly from this, from Last Duel's disaster. So good for him. And yeah, in the grand scheme of things, I would say this is a hit. Well, not a hit, but it could have been much worse. And yeah, I don't know if it will survive the rest of December, but I think it should come reasonably close. It'll probably make $50 million, which is a little less than the 60, 70, 80 million that I predicted, but again, it could be worse. So, yeah. So that was House of Gucci. And last, and certainly least, Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. All right. Now, I knew from the get go this movie wasn't going to do great. It had a lot going against it. Had a terrible trailer. Had a look that, the movie looked worse than a lot of fan made parodies. It had bad reviews. Had to deal with the stigma of the Mila Jovovich Resident Evil movies that a lot of people hate. Had a weird release date because what how many horror movies have ever opened on Thanksgiving? Yeah, usually none because it's just a weird spot to put it in. And it just felt like Sony just gave up on it and just dumped it here just to on this weekend just to make money. And yeah, now my prediction, I thought it would open with like 15 to 20 million for the 5-day weekend, like 10 for the less than 10 for 3-day, which would already be worse than all the other Resident Evil movies. But goddamn, I set my expectations too high apparently because it hasn't even reached that 15 to 20 million domestic yet. It probably won't even reach 20 because it only opened with less than 9 million for the 5-day weekend. Less than 9. That's how much I predicted for the 3-day. It made less than that for the 5-day. Like here's the thing. For like a couple weeks in advance, I thought what was going to happen was it would open bigger than House of Gucci Wednesday and then fall behind it the rest of the weekend. That's what I thought was going to happen. No, no, no. It only opened with 2.5 million, less than like the 4 that I said. So the 2.5 million Wednesday, which is just horrendous. And if it couldn't get any worse, it fell 59% the second day, only made $1 million that day. Oh, it did bounce back a bit for the weekend, but at that point the damage was done. It was over. It was over. And now, to its credit, it had a strong second weekend for post Thanksgiving, but it's too little too late. Absolutely too little too late. I mean, $13 million total. I mean, let's compare it to the other Resident Evil movies because the comparison is not pretty at all. We can ignore degeneration here. Okay. So here are all the Resident Evil movies prior to Welcome to Raccoon City. So the biggest one was Afterlife with 60 million. Then we got Apocalypse with 50. Then Extinction with 50. The Retribution with 42. Then the original with 40. And then the final chapter with 26. Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City at this point in time has only made half as much as the last Resident Evil movie. In fact, its total hasn't even reached the opening weekend of the last Resident Evil movie. That's that's horrible. That's abysmal. And it definitely won't reach the 20 million range. It won't even make as much as the opening weekends of many of the sequels. So this is just horrendous by all accounts. It's a complete bomb in every sense of the word. And again, I wasn't surprised because like the advertising for this was like non-existent. Probably because Sony believed it would be a better idea to spend more money on Spider-Man than this, which I say was a smart choice. And so they just left this out to die, and it died. So, yeah. Not surprised. I thought about watching it, but ultimately I decided, you know what? No, I'm not I'm not going to do that to myself because I heard it was really bad and also boring and like why would I sit through that? So, yeah. Yeah, Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, a complete mistake of a film and it will be forgotten very quickly. So, yeah, that's it for November. But one last thing I want to talk about is Licorice Pizza over here, which opened in limited release. Now, for a while, people said, oh, the art house market is dead. It's dead. It's dead. It's dead. It's dead. Well, that started to change recently with the French Dispatch, which did very well in limited release. But the Licorice Pizza, it reached numbers we haven't seen since late 2019. because it opened only 4 theaters and it had a per theater average of 86,000, 86K, the biggest since Uncut Gems back in December of 2019. So that's insane. And its second weekend, look at that average, 55 million, 55 million, 55K. So it's doing phenomenal so far on limited release. I don't know if it's going to do well when it expands on Christmas, but I think this is proof positive that the art house market is not dead. In fact, it might thrive again very soon. So, yeah, that's a definitely, I consider that a positive. But it's not a wide release, so I won't cover it in detail until it comes out on Christmas, because that's when it's supposed to expand wide, and it's gonna be dealing with a whole lot of competition. So I don't know. I'm not too keen on its chances, but we'll see. So that's November. Overall, not great. I mean, it was still better most than the majority of the months this year, but it was just kind of meh. It just is overall just a meh month. Thankfully, that will change with December. Now, the first weekend of December is already passed. There were no wide releases, so I couldn't cover anything. But after that, I mean, we got West Side Story, which could do okay if it can survive the competition. But then the big one, the big boy, Spider-Man No Way Home, which should destroy everything in its path. It'll probably be the first, forget 200, it'll be the first 300 plus grossing movie domestically since 2019. Maybe it might reach 400 million if it's really lucky. It might be the biggest Spider-Man movie of all time if it lives up to the hype. Then after that, we got Sing 2, which I think should do great. I mean, I've heard it made like 1.5 million from like previews that happened like I think it was last weekend with Encanto, like 5 p.m. And this is like a month before it even comes out. So I think that's a positive sign. And then Matrix Resurrections, which I think will do way better than most HBO Max movies. It'll probably reach 100 million. I think it might be the biggest HBO Max movie period. But I could be wrong. And then we got a bunch of other stuff. We got The King's Man, we got Licorice Pizza, got American Underdog, Journal for Jordan. A whole lot's going to be going on this month. And it's going to be very hectic, but I'm going to do my best to cover it all. So, yeah. Yeah. So, as lackluster as November was, December should end on a high note. So, that's good. Anywho, yeah, that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn on notifications, share the whole drill. Want to check out more videos like this? Got playlists on the homepage with all previous recap videos I made, for the past few years, especially this year. If you want to watch any of the past recap videos I made this year, you can go right ahead. Just that way you can see how things have evolved, how they've changed from the beginning of the year to now. It's quite interesting. So, yeah, you can check those out. There's also box office predictions where I predict box office for movies. I'll be doing National Champions of West Side Story this weekend. Then next weekend, Spider Man, and then I gotta figure out a schedule for how I'm gonna cover all these Christmas movies, but I'll figure it out. But if you wanna watch any of the prediction videos I made for any of the November movies I've talked about, you can go right ahead and see how accurate I was or how inaccurate I was. So you can do that. There's also the canceled series where I go over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. Nothing's been really going on recently. The last one I covered was Rumble, which skipped theatrical and is now going to go straight to Paramount Plus. It's not getting the Clifford or Paw Patrol treatment. It's just going straight to Paramount Plus, and that's it. Uh, but I think with all these movies in November, let me see. I covered the Eternals a few times. I covered Clifford the Big Red Dog a few times. I covered Ghostbusters Afterlife a lot. And I covered Resident Evil a few times. So if you want to watch any of my canceled videos on those movies and all the others, all 91 episodes, go right ahead. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.